Makovsky. I'm the president and CEO of JINSA. Welcome to JINSA Snapshot. I'm joined, as it was last week. This is our second episode that we've tried this with my colleague and friend John Hannah, the Randi and Charles Wax, senior fellow here at JINSA. The big question is, we're recording this on Friday afternoon, June 20th. The Israelis have done a fantastic job since the war began last Thursday night, East Coast time here in the United States, early Friday morning in the Middle East. And the biggest question at this moment is, will he, won't he? What is Trump going to do when it comes to hitting Fordow? Is he going to bomb this nuclear facility that's buried underneath the mountain that's the Israelis can neutralize? But I think the widely held view is in Israel, and certainly here, is that the United States could do a much more significant job of damaging this facility. And I guess it's worth just pausing for a second, which is what we're going to do here, is, you know, what should happen? And I think for the Israelis, clearly they want the United States to do this. They think the U.S. is kind of, I mean, they'll publicly, officially, they say Trump will do what's best for the United States. But clearly, analysts, people speaking off the record in newspapers are saying, you know, I think the U.S. is probably overthinking it a little bit, that the risks are not as great as the Americans are making it out to be, and they should just do it. But on the other hand, I do wonder at this point, from an Israeli standpoint, that it's maybe better for Israel, if possible, to just do this themselves and do the whole operation themselves. And it'd be an important, I think, a Zionistic achievement to do this itself. And I think for Israel, and then you don't have, maybe then Israel, I think, would have more say about how this kind of plays out afterwards, after they're finished. And then you don't need to get into all the drama that's going here, where you have like these right-wing isolations telling Trump, don't do this. Others in the Republican Party say, do it. Israel just does it. So maybe from Israel's standpoint, ideally, they do it themselves. But clearly, militarily, operationally, they would like the United States to do it. I actually think, and I don't know exactly what the Israelis could do, but I think from an American perspective, from American interests, I think it's important, even if the Israelis could do this themselves, I would want to see America involved in this, because not just because we could probably do it more effectively than the Israelis, but because I think it's important for American interests to be involved in this. 5 successive presidents, including President Trump, have vowed to prevent a nuclear Iran. Here's the opportunity to do it. And I think if we don't do it, it looks bad. I think even all the back and forth, the public expression of doubts, almost the Hamlet-like approach. Should we do it? Should we not do it? Can we do a good job? Can we not do a good job? I think that's a bad signal to our adversaries. And I think if we don't do it, it's a signal to the Chinese and Russians that America is actually very hesitant to protect core national security interests. And I think it also sends not a good signal. It sends a bad signal to our close allies, the UAE, the Saudis, the Japanese, and saying, boy, the Americans aren't even willing to help Israel for not even a whole campaign, just one element of a campaign. And they're like America's closest allies. Are they really ever going to help us? So I think from a credibility standpoint, something we said we would take care of. If we don't do it, as a signal to the Iranians, to our allies, it's a bad one. I also think it would help shorten the war if the U.S. would do it. So I actually think from an American standpoint, I recognize there's risk. There's no question there would be risk for America and our assets in the region. But I think from a national security standpoint, it's important for us to hit. But anyway, John, I did my riff. Tell me what you think on how you're thinking of this at this moment. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Let me throw out some things that I'm going to be thinking about this week. First of all, on your point of how our Arab partners might respond to it, I think you'll remember that it was just a couple of years ago that you and I were sitting with an extremely important authoritative Arab leader who, when we asked what would happen if the United States didn't support Israel in an attack on Iran's nuclear weapons capability, he told us, after thinking for a second, because it was hard for him to imagine that the United States would not come to Israel's assistance to deal with this problem that we had all, as you say, successive presidents had said was in the vital national interest of the United States to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. He said in that instance, if the United States did not help Israel, I think you can correct me, but something along the lines, it would be one of the most catastrophic things to happen in the region ever, because it would just underscore to our Arab friends, if Israel can't count on America in a circumstance like this, what chance do they have? That it would require a complete rethinking of their entire national security doctrine and their dependence and reliance on America to be there for them, to have their back when they get into trouble. So that just underscores your point about the importance of America standing up here, particularly after the president, all through the last several days, early part of this week, made such a big deal out of the fact that he was done with negotiations, fed up, was now on the verge of making a decision to go in and join Israel, that we were going to take care of this problem. For him now to back off and do nothing, I think would have been worse than not, announcing he was going to do something anyway. So he's got a real problem. The other thing I'm thinking, unless this is a great ruse and deception, and the president, tonight or tomorrow, we're going to hear about American B-2s flying over Fordow and destroying that site by dropping these massive ordnance penetrators. But if, in fact, we're looking at a fairly extended delay, I'm worried about Israel. It's taken a lot of damage already, as you've said. It means more days of taking these barrages of Iranian ballistic missiles. They are getting smaller, but there remain things getting through and people being hurt and property being destroyed. You really feel like you're in a race. Israel's in a race against time, and a question of whether it can suppress Iran's ability to launch these medium-range ballistic missiles faster than Iran is able to exhaust Israel's ability to intercept these missiles. It seems to be a real question now. Israel's inventory of aero missiles is under real stress. And obviously, the longer this goes on, the more you fear that Iran will get lucky. There will be a catastrophic loss of life in Israel, or some key piece of critical national infrastructure is taken offline for an extended period of time. The longer this goes on, the more chances of an Israeli pilot and planes being lost in Iran, perhaps being captured and taken hostage, the more damage to Israel's economy, not just from the destruction of these missiles, but from the fact that the economy at some level is on standstill. The airport is obviously shut down. Lots and lots of shops are closed. Nobody knows how many times a day they're going to have to retreat and run to get into a bunker. So that's a huge problem. And then there's also going to be, the longer this lasts, that the Americans don't decide to do what they could do in Fordow, the more urgency there will be for Israel to do what it needs to do, whatever its plan is for Fordow. And I'm sure it had a plan, but to go ahead, implement that plan, but at obviously a much higher risk in terms of success or failure, and probably not as effective as what the United States could do very quickly. So I'm very concerned that there's a real cost to the time. And if there is an amount of dithering in this Hamlet routine that you referred to, there's real cost to it, to our allies and to this war. And as you say, at the end of the day, if we decide not to take this action after the president kind of marching up this hill and threatening to do something significant, I think it'll be a real risk to American credibility and power, not only in this region, but with the Russians, with the Chinese. And I do think it probably extends this conflict and emboldens the Iranians to hold out and last out and continue to take risks in a way that's provocative and counterproductive to our interests.
Well, I think I agree with you with all that, John. Let's see how this plays out. We look forward to reconvening next week and see where we are. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.